This is Jay Dyer from Jay's Analysis. I want to give you my take on the Isaac Kappy situation. Now, you'll notice that I didn't jump on this story, this event, these claims when they came out. And I have a pretty good record for not jumping on these kinds of claims. And I think that shows that the concern that I have is being accurate, is trying to be truthful when we cover these sometimes dark events. Now, it's a tragic thing that apparently he has, we're told, killed himself. So I'm not trying to take any pleasure in that. I think that's a tragedy. In fact, the point that I want to make in this video is that the reality of spiritual warfare is such that if we try to take on evil, if we take on dark spiritual forces, they can actually consume us. He made a video where he goes on for about over an hour talking about what was coming and what he felt like he had done to betray everyone, and that he would not really be around. So it looks, if everything is as it's presented, it looks as if it was a kind of a confession. And he kept likening himself to Judas, which is curious because, you know, we know that Judas betrayed Christ for money and for selling people out for his own safety. So it wasn't just money, it was also that he told, you know, the leaders where they could find Jesus. And in Kappy's video, he continually refers to this. He talks a lot about being a Judas and being a betrayer. Now, we know that Hollywood and this realm can be very cutthroat, can be very degenerate. There's a lot of mafias going on in Hollywood, and we know that they can backstab a lot of one another. So I don't pretend to be interested in everybody's motives, but what I think could possibly have happened is that he could have been roped into some kind of a honey trap. He could have been brought into some situation where he was told that, you know, if you do XYZ, you'll be safe, and then that wasn't the case. Or if you give us all the names of everybody that you interacted with or something like that. I mean, after a while, when you've watched this kind of alternative media world, when you've watched the world of YouTubers for a while, you start to realize when things are staged and when things are not what they appear to be. Now, I'm not saying that everything that was going on was staged. I'm saying that you can have a situation where somebody is playing a character or somebody's doing performance art. You know, we've seen Shia LaBeouf do this. Shia LaBeouf has done a lot of sort of weird performance art. You know, a lot of big name artists are into doing trolling at a certain level. We see it in 4chan. We see it on Twitter. We see, even in the political realm, large-scale trolling goes on. And it's making it difficult in the world of media with this avalanche of real and trolling media all at once, and the mainstream media could be included in trolling media. It's making it very difficult to sift out true from false. So one danger is to overcomplicate, to make everything too much of a conspiracy. Not everything is a conspiracy. And if you immerse yourself in a worldview of conspiracy, I know this because I've made mistakes, you can misinterpret everything as a conspiracy. This actually comes to be a form of gambler's fallacy, a form of the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, where you then, because of a previous pattern, you will interpret every successive event as part of this grand conspiracy. And that's not actually true. The reality is life is complex, and there can be multiple layers and reasons why people do things. Not everybody is operating from the same motivations. So you have to, and I think as you get older, you're a little more experienced in that because you're used to seeing the complexity that goes on in life, and that people don't always have the exact same motivations. You can definitely find patterns, and you can definitely see consistency, and you can find a lot of similarities in human motivations. But that doesn't mean that the motivations, that human motivations, are always the same, or that they're always fitting a necessary pattern. This is one of the problems of that kind of rigoristic quantification, determinist, materialist type of worldview, where everything is assumed to be just a simple causal chain. Sometimes people do things for irrational reasons. Sometimes they do things for stupid reasons. Sometimes they do things for really cold, calculated reasons that we may not expect. Maybe the selling out of somebody had to do with the fact that he wanted to get with somebody's girlfriend. Maybe the selling out of somebody else had to do with money, and we thought it was about drama, right? It's always hard to know until the full picture emerges, and a lot of times we don't even get the full picture. So in this situation with Kappy, we know, and I followed this for a while over the months that it was kind of trending on YouTube. There's a lot of these accusations that were made that were pretty outlandish. Now, I'm not saying that everything that he said was false. I don't know. We don't know. But when it's something that's kind of circumstantial, and if a person is skeptical when something is circumstantial, that's not them trying to cover up. This is what happens a lot of times on social media and in YouTube and in comments, is that people, if you say don't take a hard position on something, then people assume your bad motives. This is really common, especially in comments. People love to just assume your motivations. They know everything. Right? The internet has taught them everything. They know what you're doing. They know who you work for. They know you're a spy for whoever. And they really have no idea what's really going on, because it's an easy way for them to feel special, to feel like I've got the key, I know what's going on in every case. Oh, I can peg this situation under bracket XYZ as bad, as shill, as liar, as he's a truth teller, he's doing this. It can be more complex than that. For example, let's say Britney Spears. Let's take her as a great example. Now, a lot of people will say, well, she's caused a lot of harm, but she's also been subjected to, abuse, mind control, free Britney, this kind of stuff, right? And then at the same time, a skeptic might say, well, yeah, but she actually has perhaps had drug problems. So would the bizarre behavior of Britney and the apparent, say, alternate personalities that seem to come forth in certain interviews that we've seen over the years, humans have a tendency to want to oversimplify and make it all one simple thing. Oh, that's because of drugs. Oh, that's because of mind control. Oh, that's because she got famous and she just fell into, a hedonistic, degenerate lifestyle and blah, 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 blah. Did you ever think about that maybe it's more than one? Maybe it's both and? I mean, maybe a person can have a drug problem and they are at the same time telling truths. I mean, Elvis is a great example of this. Now, Elvis kind of went nuts, but he also had a handler, right, Colonel Tom, who fed him the drugs. So when you're in that drug scene of fame, not only does it have a means of controlling you, it also has a means, it also functions to discredit you if you try to speak against the system or against this or that. Because immediately everybody can say, oh, you're just on drugs. So there's all kinds of complexities like that go into, how very powerful, famous celebs and these kinds of people have their lives ruined or have their lives controlled or whatever. And sometimes they can also project onto other people their own problems. They can say, oh, it's not my fault. I was put on the drugs. Well, but you also went along with it, right? Most likely. I mean, there could be cases where they were forced to do drugs or something. Most likely, in most cases, you probably weren't forced into drugs. You probably made the decision, to take pills, to get on coke, to do whatever you were doing, and then over time, it got a hold on you. Right? That's what happens with addictions. So there can be multiple layers and levels of complicity. There can be multiple motivations and factors even. And so the reason I say all that is that when we look at a situation like Kappy and what happened with him, and the reason I didn't comment on it was just because it was too circumstantial. It was too he said, she said. And yes, I understand that when all that stuff was breaking in the last couple of years, we did a few talks on it. We did a few things covering it, a few videos, interviews. But from our vantage point, we couldn't speak to that extensively because of the limitations of what we had access to. Now, does that mean that I think that the WikiLeaks emails weren't important, or that they didn't reveal things, or that? No, I'm not saying that. And we've certainly seen in the last year, with a lot of cases of busts of people like Boy Scouts, other groups, where there's large-scale abusive situations, there's no doubt that there's serious problems going on. But even when we start to realize the prevalence of these things, with abuse in Roman Catholic Church, with abuse amongst the spectrum of social and societal organizations and the establishment, you still can't jump on the accusatory situation. And at the same time, we have to be balanced in realizing that if people have been in those situations, they might be themselves doing drugs because of abuse. So I think the key here is to not get caught up in the emotionalism of it, to not get caught up in sensationalism, which is very difficult, because even if you do media, it's very easy to get caught up in the sensationalism. So I think it's a tragedy that if what happened as we're told, happened to him, and my assessment would be that he did seem to be genuinely in despair, perhaps, over something that had happened, whatever had happened. And my guess would be that he was probably roped into something honeypot, honey trap style, where he essentially told somebody or whoever he may have been roped into aligning with about all the people that had supported him or that were aiding him. I don't know. I have no idea what was really going on. I've just watched his modus operandi, and usually, if you've been doing this kind of watching this stuff for a long time, you can tell from your gut. Your gut's usually right on these kinds of things. My gut says that he was telling some truths, and then he did get self-interested, and he tried to always talk in this new age way. I'm going to take on the darkness, and it's going to be the light, the darkness, the light. It's really weird, Gnostic, new agey kind of conceptions, and you can't really fight or oppose darkness with this kind of generic new agey perspective, because it's not authentic, and the darkness will consume you if you do that. And so I think that's the sad lesson here. Anyway, that's my take on it, and that's why I didn't jump on it. And I hate to hear that something tragic has happened, but this is continually something we seem to see with the world of Hollywood, is tragedy and scandal. And that's because whether every single case of accusation is true, it doesn't really matter, because all the things that are true are enough to know that it's just a big mess. And it's really sad, because we learned that the money and the fame and the things that you think are going to make you happy, they don't really make you happy, and they lead to more problems, typically speaking. And there's a lot of darkness there. So it really is Hollywood Babylon. This is Jay Dyer from Jay's Analysis. Subscribe, click the links, bell below. And if you are going to fight the darkness, you do have to fight and oppose the darkness. The only way to do it is with an authentic Jesus, not revolutionary hippie Jesus. That's not the real Jesus. It's not the real Logos.